Okay, so we are going to start the second module of knowledge management, and this module basically covers three major topics, that is knowledge management cycle. So, we will discuss about the process, then we will also discuss some of the important models of this knowledge management cycle, and the next stage we will talk about knowledge creation and knowledge architecture in detail, and finally, what that is very important, that how to capture tacit knowledge and make it explicit, because if that is the knowledge tacit, then it remains with the people and others will not be able to make use of it. So, it is very important to identify ways and means through which we are able to capture tacit knowledge and transform them into explicit form. So, we start with the first part, that is knowledge management cycle. So, what we are going to discuss here is that what is the cycle of creating a knowledge. So, if you remember, we earlier talked about that we need to acquire knowledge, then that is create knowledge, then we have to store that knowledge, then we also need to see that we have a retrieval mechanism, and then that knowledge is being used. So, that organization is able to make use of it to gain competitive advantage. So, if you want to have an effective knowledge management system, so you need a very organized structured form of creating, structuring and retrieving knowledge. And this knowledge management cycle basically talks about this kind of things, that if you want to have a good knowledge management system in place, then you have to identify where the knowledge is, you generate it, then you acquire it, then you diffuse it, distribute it, and then you capture. So, that you are able to capture the benefits of the knowledge management. Otherwise, what will happen, if knowledge is available in some unstructured, unorganized form, either with the people or with the organization, you will not be able to make use of it, because you are going to waste your time, energy, resources in order to find where it is. But if it is available in some structured form, it is codified, classified, is available in a very structured form, then you can make use of it. Okay. So, that is where we are going to talk about a knowledge management cycle. So, if you look at knowledge management cycle, it could be seen as a root information which follows that how we are going to transform it into a very strategic asset. So, how knowledge could be used as a asset for the organization, okay, and this happens through knowledge management cycle. So, now we are going to talk about what exactly knowledge management cycle is. Now, if you look at the different processes which are related to knowledge management cycle, it includes knowledge capture, second is knowledge creation, then codification and knowledge sharing, knowledge access, knowledge application and knowledge reuse. Now, if you look at each of these concepts of knowledge management cycle, the first is knowledge capture, that is how we are going to capture knowledge. Capture knowledge means you have to find out the source of the knowledge, where the knowledge is, okay, whether the knowledge is available in some documented form, okay, or whether the knowledge is residing with the people. So, the both kind of knowledge, whether it is tacit knowledge or explicit knowledge, have to be found out, which is going to be relevant, which could be useful for the organization. So, the first stage is capturing the knowledge, and for that you have to need to identify, to look at the sources of knowledge, so that you can get it. Okay. So, that is related to knowledge capture. Second part is knowledge creation. Once you are able to find out where it is, then you have to see that how you are going to make use of it, whether it is relevant, whether it is contextual, whether you can use of it or not. So, when we are talking about creation, it is nothing else but identifying the knowledge and see that whether it is feasible, viable, and whether you can make use of it or not. So, that part is related to creation. I give an example. Have you heard about Archimedes principle? And then he was able to identify, generate a new idea, and when he came out of the bathtub, he says eureka, eureka. What was that? It means that he had identified something which was new, which was going to solve his problem. Okay. So, that once he came to know that whether it is going to really solve the problem, the knowledge that he has captured just by jumping out of the bath, because the water that was displaced was, the volume was going to be different, In that way he was able to generate an idea which could be useful, okay. But only generating the idea is not good enough. What you need to do is that you need to put it to test to see whether it is really useful or not, and that is ways you are going to create this knowledge. So, you come out with a theory, you come out with a formula, you come out with certain models, and that is what knowledge creation means. So, you look at it and then you create out of it something, that is knowledge creation. The next part is knowledge codification. Then once you have identified or created knowledge, new knowledge, then you need to put them into place. What I mean to say by putting them into place, that you need to put them in a structured format. This knowledge is related to what? In what way it could be useful? Who is going to make use of it? Where I am going to put it? Right. For example, if you look at the libraries, okay, it is a highly organized form of codified knowledge, because the knowledge is available in a very structured format. It is classified and codified using barcodes and other formats. So, that when you want to retrieve it or when you want to make use of it, you do not need to search the entire library. You go to a particular place and you can easily retrieve or get that kind of book or knowledge that you are looking forward to. So, once you have created the knowledge, that you need to put them into a place in a very systematic way, so that people who want to make use of it at a later stage can get it. So, the codification is very, very important. So, whether it is basically the kind of knowledge that is available in explicit form, that need to be codified, so that it is available for the use of others. Then the next stage in the process is sharing. Now, knowledge sharing is very, very important, because unless you share your knowledge with each other, you will not be in a position to transform tacit knowledge into explicit form. So, it is very, very important for you to see that how you are going to share knowledge. So, you need to create conditions, culture of collaboration, develop reward systems or incentives, so that people come out and share their knowledge. You also need to make it a part of the performance appraisal system, so that people come out and they share their knowledge. Okay. So, that is the knowledge sharing part. Now, the next is knowledge access. What I mean to say by knowledge access is, that is where you need an IT enabled system or technology and infrastructure, because technology infrastructure or IT enabled systems helps you to get the knowledge. Now, you know that most of the knowledge today is available in a digitized form. Now, when you are going to search some information using, say for example, Google. So, what you do? You go to Google search, type the intended word, and then you get information, and then you try to make use of it depending upon the context, and you see whether that the kind of information that is available on the Google, whether it is relevant to you or not in your context, whether you can make use of it or not. Okay. That is that second part, that is application of knowledge. But how Google has developed a search engine through which you are able to have access to the relevant information. What they have done? They have classified and codified information first, okay, and they are ready to share the knowledge, whatever the information they have with them, and then they have a technology enabled system for accessing the information. The same analogy can be given for the organizations. Now, organizations also need to develop infrastructure and IT enabled systems to have access to the knowledge, like we have digitalized library. In a digital library, you can have access to any book or journal or any article that you want just by searching it, and you have access to it. So, access is very, very important, because if you are not having a smooth and easy access, what will happen? You will not be able to get the things. Then the next stage is application. Once access is there, then you have to see that whether you are able to apply that knowledge or not. Okay. And it depends upon certain personal characteristics also. What is your motivation level, what is your interest and attitude, whether you want to make use of it, because knowledge is available, but there was really able to apply the kind of knowledge that is available with the organization or the system for doing your work effectively or not. So, you must learn or have those skills which are required to apply the knowledge to perform your job, and that is where the knowledge application part is important. And finally, reusing. Since knowledge is available, so it does not make that once it does not make sense that once you have used it, it is not useful or it is not relevant. Anybody is looking for that kind of information can make use of it, right. So, it talks about knowledge reuse. Now, after discussing this process insert, let us discuss some of the models that have been developed in the literature, which talks about knowledge management cycle. And here I am going to discuss 4 important models, and then I will try to integrate these models into one model. So, the first model, which is commonly known as Jack model, which was developed by Mayer and Jack, it is known as knowledge management cycle developed by basically Mayer and Jack. So, they talked about KM cycle process, and he said that technologies, facilities and processes of manufacturing products and services are important. So, if you want to have a good knowledge management cycle, it helps you to basically come out with good products and services, and for that what you need is technology, facilities and processes. So, you need to identify the process through which things takes place, technology, because technology is the backbone, because it provides the infrastructure, okay, and the system, and then facilities, the support that is required to develop a knowledge management system. Okay. So, he talks about 2 kinds of things, products and contents. Information is a product basically. For knowledge management system, information is a product, right, because that is what you want to offer to the people. Okay. So, and where it is available? It is available with the repositories of the organization. Okay. And what does it include? It include the content and the structure, and this content is available in a very structured form. So, if you look at the content and structure of the information, it is unique in each case of the organization. Say for example, for a bank, what would the content? What the content and the structure? The content is the database of the people, how much amount is with the people, okay, and it is available in a very structured form with the organization. So, if they want to look at the say using a customer ID, they can see that how much information is available or how much money is amount is available with a particular person. Okay. Now, this content and structure, this information product, it can be used by other stakeholders also. Say for example, it can be used by service providers. Okay. Suppose they want to offer you certain services, based on that they can offer it. It can also be used by income tax people, because they can see that whether you are earning and whether your say expenditure is matching or not. Okay. So, this information as a product, which is basically nothing else but a repository in terms of content and structure. Now, what is content? Content is the database that is available with the repositories. Okay. So, the content for a Google is huge. Okay. It could be images, it is the videos, it could be audios, it could be articles, okay, it could be PowerPoint presentations, it could be PDF files, all kind of things you can find in the Google, right. So, that is what is available as a data in the repository of the Google, okay, and that provides the building from the building block for the resulting information products. Okay. Like one example that I have given, the bank have contents relating to the personal commercial accounts. Okay. So, what we are going to based on this information content and structure, what he did, he tried to develop a model, okay, and this model includes knowledge repositories and mapped into stages, different stages of cycle. So, we basically talked about 2 things. There are 2 things, one the source and the other is users. Okay. Source include what? Repository, that is in terms of content and structure, and product family, it could be different kind of forms in which the content is available, right, to the users, that is how it is packaged, how it is distributed to the people, how you interact with the database, right. So, on the one side you have sources based on the platform that you are going to use for archiving the database, and then how it is going to be used by the users. So, the kind of content that is we are going to provide to the people, in what way it is available, okay, packaging format, like I talked about, whether it is available in video format or say audio format or text format or the PowerPoint presentations, okay, whatever it is. Okay. And then how we are going to access, what is the channels through which we are going to access it. Okay. It could be say internet or intranet, and then how interactive it is, right. So, depending upon the nature of technology, it could be more interactive or less interactive. Now, the different stages which I am going to talk about knowledge management cycle is what we have already talked is acquisition, refinement, storage, retrieval and distribution and then presentation. These are the 5 different stages which Mayer and Jock has talked about. So, look at the first part of his knowledge management cycle, that is acquisition. Acquisition, that how you acquire the content, okay, and it talks about various issues related to the content, that the scope of the content, the level at which it is available, the depth and breadth of the content, how credible the content is, how accurate it is, how relevant it is in terms of timeliness. Okay. Timeliness, whether you can use it right now or it is not useful, is it relevant for your use or not. You also need to look into in terms of cost, control and whether content is exclusive or this content is available with other databases, other forms also. Okay. So, the idea of acquisition is that knowledge management cycle, when you are talking about knowledge management cycle and when you are talking about acquiring certain content or the databases in forms of data or the facts that you want to have, you will make sure that the data is credible, accurate, relevant, cost effective, okay, and make sure that the quality is maintained. So, you must look for quality data, because if the quality data is not there, then probably you will not be coming out with good information products. Okay. So, the first part is acquisition, then we move to the next stage, that is refinement. When I am talking about refinement, so it includes what? I mean, how we are going to refine the data. So, once you have the data, what you need to do is you need to organize them into meaningful way, right. So, it could be done physically or logically. Okay. So, you can migrate from one medium to another physical form. Say for example, the data is available in say one mechanical form, then you are going to have in a digital form. Okay. So, that is from migrating from one medium to another medium. Then or logical, like you are going to restructure, relabel, reindex it. So, that is where you are going to organize, classify and codify, and that is related to refinement. In the process of refining the data, when you are going to move data from one medium to another medium and organize this databases, okay, into a structured format, you also need to see that the content is clean. It means you make sure that it is not biased, okay, and at the same time you also maintain anonymity of the sources and the key players, that is who were involved in getting the data, and then you also standardize that, right, because you might be having certain best practices of putting the data into the system. So, you need to make sure that the data that you have is going to fit into your system as per the templates are the best practices of your system. So, that you can be it can be used by your organization. So, this is related to what we call the second stage, that is refinement, and basically that is where you are going to create value. It means the raw data is transformed into a more meaningful organized data. Okay. Then the third and the fourth stage basically is storage and retrieval and distribution. Okay. That is where basically you have a bridge between the upstream addition and refinement stage. Basically, once you have the repositories and you want to make sure that people are going to use it. So, you are going to store the data either into a physical form or the digital form, right. So, the physical form like folders, printed information, books, or in a digital form like databases or using softwares for keeping the things, right. So, that is related to storage and retrieval, because depending upon the form in which you are going to store the data, it is going to see that how are you going to retrieve it. Okay. So, it could be either physical or digital. Then distribution of the data. Now, how the product is to be delivered to the end users. Okay. So, the information is available. So, if it is available in a physical form, then the medium of delivery is going to be different. If it is available in digital form, then the medium of delivery could be more electronic. Yes. And if you are going to use digital delivery formats, then it is very cost effective. Okay. You are going to save time, resources and cost right. So, for example, if you want an article, if you request me, I would send it to you, but if it is available in physical form with me, what will happen? I will get a photocopy and it involves cost, and then I will post it and then you get it. Okay. So, that again involves cost, and then there is a delay also, right. So, when a product, that is information, is available in a very highly organized and structured form, that we have to see that how it is going to be distributed, right. Or if the information is available, I can say okay, you go to the website, this information is already there, you can have it, right. And then you have to see that how frequently you are going to make use of it, okay, whether in what form it is, that whether the language is suitable to you or not. Okay. So, these are the issues related to distribution that is involved. Then the fifth stage is presentation, okay, or application stage. How we are going to make use of that, because that is where the knowledge is going to add value to the organization, okay. And for that you need a context to make use of that content, because you may be having the content, but we do not know where to use, how to use it. Okay. Then probably the knowledge management cycle fails, because if you are not going to apply the information which is available in a structured form, then probably it is not going to deliver any kind of value either to the individual or to the organization. Okay. Now, one example I am giving here, for example, a basic database, okay, which is going to represent an example of a knowledge, okay, that has been created. How we are going to add value by to this database? By finding out the trend from this data. Suppose I give a database of the profits of a particular company for the 5 years. Okay. So, this is the profit of the last 5 years of the company. Now, this is a database, okay, which is given to you, and it is a very structured format, is available using different financial indicators. I tell you, okay, this is return on investment, this is return on asset, this is the balance sheet, this is how much profit the company has been making every year, and this data is available in a structured form to you for the last 5 years. How you can add value to this? Okay. One way to look at it is that, okay, based on this data, can you predict about the future? Okay. What kind of profit the company is likely to make, provided this kind of scenario is there. Okay. So, value can be added by finding out the trend from this data. So, you go for some kind of analysis, make use of this data, infer certain things, and that is where you are going to add value to that database, okay, which is the knowledge which you are going to apply to take certain decisions related to the organization and its functioning. Okay. So, the information has been repackaged to provide trend analysis, and which can be used as a basis for decision making in the organization, right. So, these are the 5 different stages of KM cycle, which is discussed by Mayer and Jack. Now, there is another model which is more or less similar, and it is known as Buckovich and Williams model, and what he says that he more or less talked about the similar thing, that how organizations generate, maintain and expand a strategically correct stock of knowledge to create value. So, now if you look at the earlier model and this model, they also talked about the similar things, that is how we are going to generate knowledge, how we are going to maintain it, and how we are going to expand a strategically correct stack of knowledge to create value. Again, he is talking about the same thing, acquisition, maintenance, and use of that knowledge, so that you can add value to the business. Okay. Now, what he did in his framework, he included certain certain things, and these concepts that he has used in his framework include knowledge repositories, relationships, information technology, communication infrastructure, functional skill sets, process know-how, environmental responsiveness, organizational intelligence, and external sources. Now, if you look at each of these concepts, let me explain briefly. That is knowledge repositories. What is a knowledge repository? Okay. It is the storehouse of where the knowledge is available, okay, in some form, right. Relationship, it talks about how people interact and relate with each other. Then the kind of IT system that you have, what kind of communication infrastructure you have, both physical communication, that is verbal or face to face, as well as communicating through technology, that is using say emails, faxes, telephones, and other forms of infrastructure. So, it talks about both technical communication and face to face communication. Then what kind of skill sets would be required by the people to make use of it. Then whether the knowledge repositories also has the process know how, or it only has certain explicit information in the form of documents, books, guidelines and manuals. Okay. Then whether it is going to help you to respond to the environmental requirements, whether the kind of knowledge repository that you have is going to be useful for you to face the challenges of the organization in terms of coping with the challenges of the environment or not. Okay. And that is where organizational intelligence comes. Organizational intelligence is nothing but the ability of the organization to cope up with the challenges of the environment. Okay. So, whether your organization is intelligent enough to sense what is happening in the environment, okay, and in order to cope up with the challenges, what an organization needs to act and do, so that he is able to more responsive, okay, and what are the external sources of information that is available. So, now if you look at this model, it talks about certain things. Okay. It starts with assess. On the one side it is get, use and learn, that is how you contribute, and the other side talks about build, sustain, divest it, right. So, it talks about two things. On the one side talks about get, use and learn, it other side it talks about building and sustaining the knowledge base and also divesting it. Why I am saying divesting it? Because the knowledge base that you create may become obsolete and outdated over a period of time. So, you need to create new knowledge, you need to build up new knowledge base, and that is where you go for divesting old knowledge systems or old knowledge, because that may not be useful. Okay. So, he talks about both. One side he talked about creating and building a knowledge base which is going to be sustainable, and at the same time he also wants to make sure that the kind of knowledge system that that you are going to build up is going to be more relevant and contextual for you. Now, if you look at the explanation for this, it says that get, use and learn, first part, okay, that is acquire the knowledge, seeking out information where the knowledge is available, okay, whether the knowledge is available in tacit form or whether it is available in explicit form. Okay. Now, you have to be selective when faced with information overload. So, if there is a lot of information, that what you do, then you identify the key elements and based on that you search for the relevant information. Say for example, you are looking for certain information in Google, what you do is type that particular word, okay, search it, but you get lot of information, maybe one word might elicit say thousands of responses from the Google, and all of them may not be useful. So, then what you do, you go through some of them and then try alternate keywords, and that is where you are going to be selective, because in that case you get less information. So, gradually and gradually when you as you search more and more, probably you become more selective and you try to get more relevant information. Okay. So, you have to seek out information either in tacit form from the people through interactions and relationships or collaborations, or from explicit form that is available in some documented way, right. So, once you get the information, then you use it, okay. Combine content in new and interesting ways to create innovation. How you are going to make use of that information for doing something new. Okay. So, when you are going to create knowledge, new knowledge, that is where you are going to use old knowledge, your experience, and based on that you try to develop something new, and that is what we call use of knowledge. So, that content that is available to you, you look at it and use it to create something that is new. Then learning. Learning takes place from the experience. As you go through this process of seeking out the information and using that knowledge, then you are used to it, and then you create a repository, what is called an organizational memory. So, whatever you learn, that could be documented by you and put into the memory of the system, right. Then contribute. You also need to motivate people to post what they have learned to a knowledge base. You might be having a knowledge management system, but how rich the content is, what is the quality of the content, it depends upon the people, whether people have really contributed to the content or not, based on their experiences, their learning. Okay. So, if they contribute, probably that would create a huge and very quality knowledge base. Okay. So, what you need to do is that you have to link the learning of the people and knowledge to organizational memory. So, that you are able to transform that learning into the memory, and that is possible through how? Not in tacit form, but explicit form. So, whatever you learn, if you are able to document it, then it becomes explicit, which could be kept in the memory of the system, right. And then assess. Look at your knowledge capital, how good it is. Okay. Keep on regularly go for an audit and check the kind of knowledge base that you have. Okay. So, you also use certain metrics in terms of effectiveness of the knowledge management system, effectiveness of the learning system. Okay. So, you can develop certain metrics to see how the knowledge management system is effective, and you can also assess each and every level the extent to which it is going to be effective. Okay, the knowledge acquisition level, whether the contribution level, whether people are having knowledge, but not contributing. Okay, so, at each level you can develop certain matrices, and you can see that based on this matrix whether the knowledge management system is effective or not, right. And finally, we have build and sustain and divest it. Okay. So, and that is how we are able to build a good system of knowledge management, okay, which is going to provide you a more competitive advantage. And then you should not keep assets that are no longer of any business value. See that whether the knowledge systems that you have keep only those kind of information knowledge which is going to be useful for the organization. Okay. So, you need to divest those knowledge which are obsolete, outdated, and no longer useful, right. So, what you need to do? You transfer this to outside the organization. So, divesting should be outsourced. What you can do? You can involve others in the process of divesting, so that if others can make use of it, they can get it. If others find certain value in that kind of knowledge, they can make use of it. Like for example, if you have lot of books which may not be very useful for our system, because we are working on advanced level of technology, but this kind of system may be useful for those who are working at different kind of technology. So, it could be divested to them. Okay. Then out of it you are developing certain patents and trademarks which could be commercialized, which could be given to the outside world, so that they could use it. Okay. And that is how we are going to divest certain things. I think I have to stop it. Thank you.